Okay. Hi, I am Michelle Harrell, and I'm from the North Carolina Museum of Art. And right now, it doesn't look like we've got any viewers. We've just got Ian and Melissa. So I'm going to do a couple of, just 1 minute of like some technology checks.
Hi, my name is Michelle Harrell, and I'm one of the
All right, go ahead.
Are you hearing that? I hear a feedback and echo.
Yeah, that was me. But now I see the questions, so I think I'm good.
Okay, so Melissa and Ian, if you guys can, and Emily too, if y'all can mute your mics until, and if you're ready to speak, if you can either like give me a thumbs up or something like that, and then I'm going to turn it over after I do like a little introduction to the whole thing. All right, so let me invite. Oh, I don't want to do quiet invitation. Invitation. I want to do public.
I'm not sure how to answer. I see the question by Paisley, but I'm not sure how to answer the question on the typing area.
Okay. Select a question to answer a question. Okay, I got it. I don't see any other viewers other than the 4 of us that are on right now. So, and I know we've got about a dozen people that have responded to the RSVP.
Okay, great.
So, all right, we've got 1 viewer.
Oh, there you are. That's good.
There's Kimberly.
Yay, it worked.
Okay.
Hi there.
Okay. Uh-oh. Can y'all hear that?
Yeah.
All right, hang on 1 second, guys. Guys, I am so sorry. I was going to say, but is there a way I can have like 15 to 20 minutes without that? Because they can't hear you. All right, I think we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead. I see that we've got 5 viewers. Go ahead and do some quick introductions. This is just an informal chat for us to talk about flipping the choice-based art room. My name is Michelle Harrell, and I'm at the North Carolina Museum of Art. And in our screen, I'm going to go around and let first my colleague, my partner, Emily, I'm going to let you, if you want to unmute yourself, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily Kotecki. I'm an educator at the North Carolina Museum of Art, and I've been working primarily on our distance learning programs, and I'm very excited to learn from you, everyone here, about what your needs are for a choice-based art classroom and how we can incorporate that into our online resource. So I'm excited for the conversation.
Anne, you want to introduce yourself?
Is that me? Yeah, hi, I'm Ian Sands. I'm the art teacher at Apex High School, and I'm here to chill and hang with you guys, because you're cool.
Melissa? Or Kim? Either one. I see the order.
Well, I'm Kim, and I work at Apex High School. I'm one of the art teachers. I teach Art 1 and Sculpture. And, yeah, here to talk with you guys about the open art room.
And I'm Melissa Perty. I'm also a teacher at Apex High School. Excited to be here today.
All right, well, great. Well, thank you for joining us, and we're a little new to Google Hangouts on Air in this fashion as far as sparking a conversation. We have a think tank of a dozen art educators that have worked with either our blended learning programs or our Teens Inspired Art exhibition that we're working with next week to create a unique blended learning program. I want to take just a minute to sort of share a little bit about this with you. Let's see if I can pull that up. We're from North Carolina Museum of Art, and this is after 4 years of developing online art courses that are delivered to any student in North Carolina for semester credit through North Carolina Virtual Public School. So we've created 5 online high school courses, and we have we've learned so much that now we want to say, all right, how can we increase the scale of this beyond just students that want to take this for a class credit so that teachers can use this resource. And we're turning to a signature program that we have that is an art competition that we want to flip into a learning resource for teachers. And flipping, by that we're talking about the flipped classroom model, where we preload content and context before visiting the museum. So it's a form of blended learning where they're in their classrooms and at the museum, but also it can also include some online work at home as well. We piloted this past spring with 2 art classes from across the state that worked online at the same time. They just happened to be both first period classes of the same grade level, one in Hickory, one in Jacksonville, and they came to the museum for an artist residency. So they got to watch the artists talking about their work. So when they came to the museum, they already started, they knew about the work, and they started working with them immediately. What we found in both our Teens Inspired and this flipped approach is that teachers that really understand student-centered instruction work really well with this form of delivery. So we've turned to one of our favorite little group of teachers right down the street, Apex High School, who came into my office about 6 months ago and said, we really want to create this open art room, and we started brainstorming about the possibilities. So I know that they've now created this amazing Facebook group, and I'm going to turn things over and see if I can get back to my Hangout and turn things over to Google Hangouts, turn things over to them, so to tell you guys a little bit about, whoops, when can you see me? Can you see me now? All right. All right, I'm going to get back there eventually. So I'm going to turn things over to Ian and Kimberly and Melissa. If you guys could define for us a little bit about how you would define choice-based learning in the open art room.
All right, I'll start. I guess for me it was a natural fit. I think I kind of teach more, I guess, student-centered than following teacher by teacher instructions. But what really sparked it off was I went to the NAEA, originally in Seattle and then in New York and then in Texas. And each time I went, I would see different groups of people, and I kind of merged them together. There was the Art 21 people that had this idea of like themes and big ideas, and then there were the TAB people I met, like Catherine Douglas and Nan Hathaway, and they were talking about choice-based learning. And I guess when I walked away, I kind of blended it all together in my head, and I came up with this kind of this hybrid idea. And I went back to Apex, and I just started thinking, how can I actually roll this out in a classroom, thinking the two were kind of the same thing. And so I guess I kind of took the idea of first student choice, especially materials, which is instead of like starting with a media to teach, I'm going to teach watercolors or something like that, it's starting with like an idea and then letting them choose the media that's going to fit it best. The second part of that would be like student-directed learning, as opposed to me going like, this is the step, this is the next step, this is the next step. It's letting them decide, hey, I need to learn about proportion because I want to add something to do with proportion in this, or I need to learn about perspective because I'm trying to do a building. Like they're just directing what they need to know as far as material techniques and things like that, concept ideas. And the last idea, I guess, is working with themes and big ideas. And that's where I was coming from. And then Melissa and Kimberly came on board last year, and they actually didn't have it all mixed up in their head. They knew what they were doing. So Melissa kind of brought in the concept of artistic behaviors and teaching for artistic behaviors. And I'll let her take it from there, and she can talk a little bit about where we're going with that.
Sure. Well, at the Apex High School Art Department, our lunches daily are kind of like a think tank, and we had all these interesting conversations about ways to incorporate choice in the classroom and student-directed learning. We had a lot of conversations about how can we quantify this, how can we grade it, and so I really started thinking about what the kind of the key essential elements that I want students to know and be able to do are. And really, when I boiled it down, it was work like artists. And so I started to think, what do I want kids to be able to do as artists, and brought it to the team. And we did a week-long residency at NCAT this last school year, and we came up with 8 artistic behaviors, things that artists should know and be able to do. and we developed a rubric to quantify how students are doing them. For example, making original art. The top level of that is creating totally new ideas. So we have these 8 artistic behaviors that we use for students, that we use as the impetus for our teaching, and then we use for students to do some reflective blogging about, and we've been using them to taking them even further and developing some really cool student-directed units based on them. Another way our classrooms are really student-directed is with this portal that we've been working on, and Kim's going to talk about that.
All right, I figured out how to unmute myself. So with these artistic behaviors that we have focused on, the students really need a place for resources. So they have this website that we have created. Is called the Portal, and it has different sections in it. One section focuses on how to get inspiration. How are the students going to find artists in the world? How, what museums have at certain times, things like that. Another section would be how-to videos. So we have little tutorials here and there that the students can watch. For example, we have a watercolor tutorial where it's using different techniques, and then they can apply those techniques to their artwork. We have another section blog. So we want the students to reflect on what they've been working on, what they've been doing in the class, and we have that in that location. Another section for personal class sites that we've each made. The one that we really focused on at NCAT was our the section on the how-tos, like the little video tutorials that we were making, and they were very successful. And it's wonderful to have these resources where even if you're explaining it to a student, you walk them through it, you have all this in front of them. It's nice for the student to go back and look through the portal and say, okay, wait, how do I do maybe the flipping of a sorry, I lost the word for it, for printmaking. How do I flip the image? And they can just look at a quick tutorial how to do it, and they're off on their way. And I guess I'll throw it back to Michelle now.
Show me. Let's see. Can you guys see me yet?
Not yet.
All right, so I am going, and we've got this weird like mirror, looking in a mirror thing that every time we turn it over to somebody new that comes up, but it seems to go away. So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to get rid of that. So my questions are to you, and we can use the group chat if, for those of you that are in this, or the viewers that are watching this online, I think that you can use the Q&A app to ask questions for our audience. So the first question is, what technology, so if we were to, my first question is a little bit more global than some of the questions that are listed there. You can respond in the group chat, or if those of you that are joining us live want to answer it. How could a state art museum, and what could we do to offer this group of teachers to increase the scale of what you are doing, and offer this as pilot this as a statewide program through Teens Inspired? What portal and what kinds of resources would you really like to have available that could empower you in your classroom? What do you feel like would be the most beneficiary, since you guys might be, a step ahead of some others that are looking at going in that direction? Do y'all want to, Melissa, Ian, or Kim, do y'all want to address that?
Yeah, I was really interested in when you were talking about what you did with the groups that you did the flipped learning with this year. They were able to see the artists. Access to artists, I think, is an amazing possibility using 21st century learning tools like Twitter or Instagram, anywhere where kids are, to have communication with the artists, even videos of artist talks, anything that can kind of bridge that gap between seeing a work and interacting with what the artist is thinking really interests me.
I was just going to jump in and say that we do have, this last time, jumping off what you said, Melissa, is that we did have video interviews with artists and getting feedback from the students. Part of their flipped experience was coming to the museum and working. And not all future programs of the Teens Inspired will be like this, but they got a chance to meet with the artists. But they did say that some of their favorite parts of the experience was working with artists, hearing from artists, and we also pulled specifically from North Carolina artists so that they could see, I'm a student in this state in North Carolina, and here are some other successful, we were focusing on photographers from North Carolina, and what can I learn from them? So it's great to hear that that's a need that you have, because that's something that we've done before and that we want to keep building, because like you said, I think hearing from the artists directly is so important. What other questions or what other ideas would you like to see more of that we could help provide? Because we can provide that kind of video access to artists. Or while you're thinking about it, I have a question for Kim and how you guys use your portal, and what is the success of using the portal? How have you used that portal? How have your students used it, and have they enjoyed using it, and is it easy for them to use?
As long as they remember the website, in which I always go over every time I bring it up. So they, after the first couple times, they have it memorized. But we have it pulled up, and sometimes I use it in teaching. So I will be teaching them the printmaking process alongside the video that we have recorded. And so they've seen it before, they know how to use it, and then when they have a question, if it's something already pulled up, or as one teacher, you can't, you want to be able to have that one-on-one time with every student, but sometimes the student doesn't want to wait 20 minutes for you to be able to get around, so the students pull that up with ease. The students seem to really enjoy having that, and it's like their backup. They know they can always ask me anything, but sometimes at home when they're working on their blogs, they can pull that up because they forgot what it was called to transfer an image, and they will say, oh yeah, and they'll watch the video. It's also really great to have the students who have that video not only in reflecting, but during their work, double checking things, and beforehand kind of in helping plan. The students all have access to it, and we've been trying to work on making it the home page for each computer, but they've reset a couple times. So as soon as we get back to school, we'll have it. So as soon as they pull up the internet on the school computer, it'll be right there, and they can see it. I hope that answered your question. I kind of went all over the place.
That was helpful. That was helpful. And I was trying to think about what other types of ideas, like Melissa had this example of access to artists, is something that the museum could help provide to teachers. What other ways?
Yeah, I got one for you, I think. And this is one of the artistic behaviors we're looking at as doing a unit next semester, is artists as a curate. And it goes from the simple idea of having artists being able to, or students, I'll call them artists, having our students look at artwork, and the beginning section of that would be just to be able to organize them by like genre, organize them by media, or organize them by themes. And it comes from my mom. We went up to the Hirshhorn over they curated an exhibit, and I thought it would be interesting if like students had to go out and they had to find different artists that they could if they were going to curate their own show, that they found artists that worked with destruction, or like when you guys did the time the 0 to 60, and you had all those kind of artists that all fit together. It'd be really neat, and then working with that, actually going and scaffolding that up to students understanding that, being able to develop their own style, like that is identifiable, when you get up to an Art 3 or Art 4 level. So how neat would it be, and just think about technology for a minute, if you could go to the museum site as a student, you could somehow search, look through artists, and be able to, maybe in a Pinterest type fashion, be able to make groupings, be able to curate your own show or your own ideas for, I need artists that fit this type of a genre. I need artists that would fit into my destruction art show or whatever it would be. That would be really wild if they'd be able to do that in some way.
Emily, I can respond to that. Ian and I can catch y'all up a little bit next week. We actually are working with developers right now. We've got some price quotes out for doing just that. Our Moodle platform right now is a little bit too static to be able to curate their own collections, and the grant that we received to pilot and increase the scale of our first blended learning pilot is a little out of our budget, but we're definitely well, I just had a meeting this morning with a developer trying to figure out a way to make this happen. But I think curating, I think you can learn through images. And the idea of comparing and contrasting images and curating image sets, and even taking, like, say if you're having a critique and everybody posted their own images, and then maybe you collect 3 of the images that you feel are the strongest examples of blah, blah, blah. I think there's so many learning potentials of what you're just talking about that, but I don't know that we're going to be able to do it for this pilot. But yeah, it's a great idea. Well, I want to ask one more question with you guys. I know we're starting to run out of time in the next 5 or 10 minutes, but one of the unintended outcomes that came out of this pilot that we did when you had 2 classes from across the state online at the same time was the social experience of learning together, that they really liked the idea. There's something anonymous about being online with other high school students you don't know across the state talking about the same stuff. So that was an unanticipated outcome that was really positive, probably the strongest one of the unit. What would you think about collaborating with another teacher across the state and having like a field trip meetup where you both come to the museum at the same time and your students are online learning about this theme at the same time? How interested, or what do you think the benefits are about that kind of social dialogue and interaction beyond your classroom? Thoughts?
Who wants it?
I think it sounds pretty. Ian, you can go if you want to.
No, go ahead. I already had mine.
I just want to say, I think for people who are watching and not on the Google Hangout, I think you can put in your comments in the question. So in the form of a question, you can add a comment. So if you want to add something to that, to what Michelle just said, you can add it as a question, FYI, and we'll all see it.
As far as Michelle's question about kind of a group learning experience, I think it sounds pretty amazing. Anything that takes kids out of their sort of everyday context. You know, life in Raleigh is what these kids are used to, and meeting people from other sides of the state who might have a different point of view, a different approach to the artwork, I think has just sort of unlimited potential. I'm really excited about the idea.
I want to address just very briefly some of the comments and questions. So I want to first of all, let's see, selecting the question from Jean Barnett, talking about short videos of current artists. I think that there's some really exciting things with Art 21 that we can look at as a model, and fortunately Jack Watson is with us, that is going to be joining our think tank next week. He's an Art 21 educator, and he's going to be part of the group that's creating this online learning experience. And I think that we agree that contemporary art is a really powerful connection for teens, is a relevant, meaningful experience. And what a great responsibility that we have to collect all this archival footage of them talking about their work, whether it's live or it's just something, it's a mission that I have that we need to just capture as much as we can for prosperity. So I totally agree with that comment. I think trying to figure out the best way to make that accessible for everybody, whether it's just an open website or if it's a learning experience like this that's a little bit more controlled. I think that's what we're trying to figure out with you guys. I am, let's see.
Can I jump in real quick? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, Colleen, I don't know that I'm able to let you join the chat that way, but just in case it's a, I know you're on my Google Hangout list. Why aren't you coming up? I'm going to see if I can actually invite you to this so that you can join it live, and if not, I've made it public, but for some reason I'm having a difficult time pulling other people into this. All right, I'm also for the think tank next week, and she's asking specifically about this pilot that we're going to create together and looking at what kind of technology do you expect for us to have in the art classroom. The technology that we used in this first pilot with the two art teachers, Renee and Lori from Hickory and Jacksonville, they had access to computers in their classroom, but I believe there was only like 3 or 4 computers, and sometimes their classes exceeded 20 students. So they used sort of like a rotational model. Sometimes they watch videos all together, but we'd really like for where we're talking about going this year, a more student-centered, where there could be multiple paths of learning. We don't want the whole class to sit down and do something together at the same time. So the idea of having them maybe once a week go to a lab, or use their phones and computers at home, or use a rotational model in the classroom so that they could have, like, on Monday, this group is going to be on the computers for at least half the class period, and the rest of the class is in studio. You know, however, I think that's something we need to work out as a group, how to best use computers, because most art rooms don't have a 1-to-1 ratio. It would help if there was a webcam or some way to have some kind of live feed like this. For our pilot this spring, we did Skype and Google Hangout so that I could ask questions. I had like a Friday standing appointment with the students that we could talk online live. And then everything else we lent them. We lent them digital cameras and everything else. So it was a very basic access to, and we provide the platform that they log on to. So I hope that answers that question. I want to address Colleen's question about having schools and students collaborate without physically being able to come to the museum. Exactly. So, Colleen, I'm thinking, I have a tendency, those of you guys that know me, to be like, wow, I have so many ideas in my head that I'm ready to just make this happen. But I think we did our first pilot with 2 art teachers. So now what we want to do is to take something that a bunch of art teachers in our state use, which is this high school program called Teens Inspired, and we want to make an awesome learning experience around that program with maybe 10 art teachers, maybe 20 art teachers. Maybe they're mostly from North Carolina, but maybe they're not. And hopefully this first experience, at least they can have at least one trip to the museum. I definitely think that there's going to be some opportunities for us to do blended learning options without a museum visit. But I think this is a great opportunity for us to totally, I like for students to have something online that when they come to the galleries, they're not just, it's not a sit and get program, that they're not just sitting listening to a docent, that they really have an inquiry-based thing, that they're building upon knowledge. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I definitely think that this is step 1 of getting to an international model. So hopefully maybe 2 or 3 years we'll be able to really expand. But I want to keep thinking globally the whole time that we're doing this. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for inviting me to the chat. It's nice to see everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for, let's see, I'm looking in the chat. Before we sort of take off and wrap up, this is, again, this is to spark the conversation for the think tank, which is next week with a small group of North Carolina educators. But I'd really like to entertain the option of having another follow-up Google Hangout, say in August, sometime right before school starts, so that we can reconnect with our think tank. And I like the idea of crowdsourcing. I think there's some great feedback on the Facebook group. And for any of you that joined us on the Google Plus group that aren't familiar with it's the Melissa or Kim or Ian, can y'all, high school art teachers tab, what's the exact name of that group?
High school tab, I think.
I'm going to look it up right now.
I think it's high school tab.
Isn't it HS?
Yeah, HS tab sounds right.
I'm trying to look at it right now.
So it's about over 100 art teachers now, I think, that are mostly high school, but there are elementary and middle school teachers that are either currently using choice-based or tab in their classrooms, or they are interested in it. So there's been some amazing conversations this summer just about how to have that kind of student-centered, inquiry-based learning. So, all right, so we hope to have lots more ideas next week with our think tank, as well as sharing them with our larger community. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, guys.